clock out. So like I said, thank you all for being here. We're going to talk about dodgeball, so we'll be in here for our slides. Dodgeball is going to be, I would say, 70% normal this year. There's one big change that I think it's going to be a good change to make sure that people are being safe, but I think a lot of our participants are probably going to complain about it. So we'll get through this, and then we'll go over the managers, we'll scrimmage, and you all will get an opportunity to officiate. So first off, I wanted to start with housekeeping like we normally do. So thank you. I wanted to just thank everybody that's worked this semester. I think my opinion of what I thought the semester was going to be and what it actually turned out to be are very different. I think you all are doing much better just as in general as students, and especially as a staff. So thank you for all your hard work to make sure that we can get to this point. I thought there was almost a 0% chance that we'd get to season 2, so it's pretty exciting we're here, and hopefully that momentum carries into next semester, and maybe we'll be able to expand our programming just a little bit to some different sports. So thank you so much. Also wanted to talk about all staff development. So I think everybody, unless you were hired last spring and somehow didn't get to make it, was here for all staff, which is that first Sunday of the semester. And so it's conference style. Obviously we can't do that because that's way too many people in the building, and it's just not going to happen the way it traditionally has happened. And so there was a survey that went out several weeks ago. It's now closed, and we didn't really get a ton of responses. So I wanted to have a quick discussion. If you're going to be here tomorrow night, we're going to do the same thing. So as the committee that plans these development things, we want to know what you all have the capacity to do, right? And so we know that the burnout is real. From my conversations with a lot of the managers, since we talk a lot more often than I talk to the officials, y'all are screened out like when you have free time, the last thing you want to do is jump on the computer. And so we kind of wanted to talk about that. So everything is on the table for all staff. We can do something similar to Rec Ramp Up, where we just do a video that you have to watch that kind of updates you on what to expect for spring semester. We can do some team building stuff. So I don't know how many of you are involved in Goose Chase, that's the app we're using for Rec Olympics this year. It's pretty sweet. So like you have the app, I think every Tuesday or Wednesday, a mission drops, and you have teams of 3 to 5, and someone on the team has to do that mission. Sometimes it takes everybody, sometimes it takes one person. And so I think the last one was like a TikTok dance or something like that. So basically you rack up points by completing these missions, but you're on a team virtually doing it and competing against each other. So that's an option. We can do development online, and so like if you feel like there's a need for like managers specifically, if you feel like you're missing a skill for managing, or officials, if you don't feel like you're getting something that you know you're going to need in your future career, we can create that content and then have that on Bridge or another online application for you to watch. So I just kind of wanted to get a gauge from you all what you're looking for spring, if you would want to do something, if you would be interested in getting paid for that development stuff, if you would be interested in getting paid for some fun stuff, or if you just thinking about the first week of spring semester, just want to focus on school and survive. So I'm going to open it up. You don't have to raise your hand or anything. I just wanted to hear from y'all if you have any opinions.
I like the getting paid for fun stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
I like the app thing, whatever,
Rec Olympics, so just to kind of run that back and do different missions.
Yeah.
Is anyone in here doing Rec Olympics? Does anyone want to, I don't think I explained it well enough. So does anyone want to talk about what your experience so far has been with it?
Super fun.
It's really easy to use, and it's like the missions aren't really hard to do, and they get you out of the house, and they usually, for the missions that they've done for the Rec Olympics, what I've noticed is they've done one that's kind of like a physical activity that you need to go do, and then one that's kind of more creative, and then one that's like a critical thinking one. Yes, but
Like some like rec trivia.
yeah.
They usually post 4 every Monday, and you have 2 weeks to complete them, and then it closes, and then so every week it'll send some, so you've got some overlap. But it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Is there any interest in professional development, like getting something beyond, like you're gonna get paid for that, but getting skills beyond what you get from us within the intramural sports bubble. Okay, I'll take that as a no, which is completely fine. I know y'all are tapped. Greta, did you have
I mean, yeah, just like an opinion. I feel like the development stuff was really beneficial, but like, I mean, this is my 4th year here and doing it 4 times. I know there's different classes and stuff. It just kind of gets repetitive. So I feel like, I don't know if it's like something that we can maybe offer a few classes to people who are newer to the rec or something like that, because I feel like they are really beneficial and everything, but like once you reach getting past the foundational courses, like they are optional and everything. So I feel like those foundational courses are really important, but for the people who have already done them and everything, it's very repetitive and something we're not going to want to go on and do.
For sure. Oh, I definitely hear that, and I think that's been the complaint or the feedback that we've gotten for the last 2 years. And so, pre-COVID, what the plan was to have a manager-specific track, and you all would have gone through something. So I don't think any of you were here long enough ago to where there used to be a manager-only mandatory training at the beginning of the fall semester that all managers had to come to, and we were going to have like an odd and an even year, and there were going to be no overlap in content. So most of our managers are managers for 2 years. Your first year, you would do the first year. If you're a manager the second year, you would do that one, and you would never have to repeat those courses, because I think that's the biggest piece of feedback is, especially if you're not on getting in and registering for the traditional all-staff, you might get stuck doing something that you did the year before, even if you didn't want to. And so we were still trying to explore what to do for everybody else, but give the manager something that you tangibly can use in your job, and then give you all either something different as entry-level staff, or it's optional. Like, we were trying to change everything again, so some of you that have been here for 3 or 4 years know that we've probably gone here on your 3rd rendition of these things, and so every 2 to 3 years we try to change everything. So yeah, I think, Greta, thank you for that. I think the content is valuable when we do professional development, but we don't want you to double up and go learn the exact same thing and the exact same presentation you did the year before. Any other comments before we move on to training stuff? Sweet. So thank you all for your feedback on that. I appreciate it. Next thing that I wanted to talk about is our manager training program. So this is going to be new for us, us being Adam and I. We have not done something like this at CSU, but we see a need for it. So looking ahead in time, we have 15 managers right now. We will have 11 next semester for our graduating in semester. So we are not looking to hire in this semester for next semester. The current managers feel like the workload is going to be such that they don't need a new group of managers for the spring. But starting immediately in the spring, we are going to start our manager training program. And so this is going to be by nomination from a manager, or you just let me know you want to be part of it. And so what it will look like is the initial training that all of our managers got, which is 2 hours online, I think, and then about an hour and a half discussion, which hopefully we'll be able to be in person. The discussion this year happened virtually. And so you go through those 2 trainings, and then you start shadowing. And you would see if managing is something that you want to do. I know that there are certain officials on staff that just love officiating so much they have no interest in managing. But this gives you the opportunity, if you're someone like that, to test it out and decide. And then from that pool of managers in training, we will hire for the following year. And right now, I think we have 2 or 3 managers that are planning on being here for fall 21. And we have 15 managers on staff at all times. On a normal year, right? If we are still, hopefully in fall 21, we are no longer programming like this, but if we are, we can probably go with a few less. But it'll give us kind of a whole semester to see who wants to step up and if you all enjoy being managers. And then the other piece of that is, like, it's hard to manage by yourself your first shift, especially if we get to go back to flag football. That's a huge sport, and there's a lot of stuff that happens all at the same time. And you need about that whole semester to kind of get ready for stuff to hit the fan, because you'll have 10 normal shifts and then one where you have 6 injuries and an ejection all at the same time. So I will be sending an email out later this semester to kind of prep for next semester. So if it's something that you're interested in, all of this will be paid. So that your trainings, your discussion, and then your shadow shifts are all paid. The other piece of this is when we do this, we also, right now we have 25 officials. So if we're looking to promote 12 for fall 21, of those, like of that 25 people are graduating this year, we are not going to have a whole lot of officials. So our talent at the manager level is going to need to be really high because for those of you that have worked a flag football season, I know it's not many of you, like we will not have a single head ref for flag football in next fall, which is usually where our veterans work because there's so much more flag football knowledge than I need. We won't have any R's for basketball. Like we will be starting our program almost from scratch at that point, based on how many people are graduating and just how many people we will have to hire. So we really need to have a really solid crew of managers because it's going to be harder than in any other semester we've ever had managers. So any questions about this manager training program for spring? Cool. Let's talk about kickball. Just kidding. Let's talk about dodgeball. We're going to talk about dodgeball. Let's talk about kickball tomorrow. So we're going to play in Moby. So we have court 1 and 2 in Moby. Court 3 is a classroom. It's always going to be set up, so we're never going to play over there. We'll have 2 games going at a time as long as everybody shows up. We will have a manager on each court and 2 officials. So unlike kickball outside where we had 2 officials working and a cleaner, we think the managers can take care of it. So 2 officials working, 1 manager, and that's what we're going to roll with this semester. Each court is going to have 6 dodgeballs. Well, you're going to have 12, and I'll explain why. But 6 on the court, 4 cones, those will mark our end lines, and then we'll have a clipboard because you'll have the score sheet. So when you get to the gym, you're going to set up. You should have already clocked in on the app as soon as you get there, so you will meet your manager over at Moby. You'll bring your stripes like normal, like you have been, and then they'll let you into the gym, and you'll unload everything from the cage, and we'll go over there so you can see the setup and everything in a little bit. You'll have your score sheet. You're going to check the players in just like normal. That will most likely fall on the officials at the beginning of the shift, and then maybe after that, we're still going to have different times and spread out so that we hopefully don't have 2 teams waiting for a court and 2 teams playing, so we don't have that overlap. But managers may have to help check people in if they're getting there early for the next set of games. So we'll check them in just like normal. We don't need numbers in dodgeball. They don't need to wear the same color shirt. They just need to be there in athletic clothes. I think we go over equipment, but like no zippers, rivets, so basically no jeans. Every year it seems like we have a team show up as the Lumberjacks, and then they forfeit week 1 because they have suspenders and buttons and zippers and everything, and they can't play. The reason for that is it scratches the floor, and it's not our floor to scratch. So we'll check everybody in, and then as we go, you're going to update the score. And so you'll have a running score on the bottom. Teams will switch, so you need to know who the teams are. Like when we do a captain's meeting, you need to double check and know what your team names are. If someone gets a red card, you're going to record it. If someone gets a yellow card, you'll record it. And then sportsmanship, the 2 officials will go at the bottom of the score sheet, just like every other sport. And here's the big difference. So we play on the volleyball court. In past years, the team could go anywhere on their half of the volleyball court. This year, they cannot. There is no run-up to start the game. So there will be 4 by 4, like 4 feet by 4 feet boxes on each half of the court. A player has to maintain contact with their square. This ensures that teammates are socially distanced. So they can dodge, they can do whatever they need to as long as they don't lose contact with their square. Like if they jump straight up and land back in their square, that's fine. If this is the edge of my square and I'm in it here and I go this way, as long as I maintain a body part in the square, I'm good. So for you, if you've worked dodgeball in the past, if a player stepped on the line or over the line, they were out. So that's not the case for their restrictive box. Okay? So our games are played to 11. So first to win 6 games, and they're going to switch after every game. So some are 6-0 and some are 6-5. Some use all 11. I don't know what it's going to be like this year. I think having restrictive squares is going to change our game a little bit because athletes are going to be able to move and dodge and jump and do all the things that they normally do. Okay, so it's 4-on-4. It's technically 5-on-5. You have 4 players in the court, and then you have a retriever outside. The minimum is 2. Okay, if a team has fewer than 5, They only get to occupy the number of participants they have minus 1 of squares. So if a team shows up with 4, you'll only have 3 playing and 1 retriever. So in years past, if a team showed up with 5, someone wore a penny, they were allowed to leave the court until somebody got out to go get the balls that were all around the gym. This year we're not allowing that, so they have to designate a retriever every game. The roster maximum is 8, so if they have 8, they put 4 on the court, they have 4 retrievers. Okay, and so if they only have 2, they have 1 in a square, and they have 1 retriever, and they're going to have to alternate or figure it out however they want to play. But no one actively playing that was occupying a square on the court to start the game can retrieve until they have been put out. If they choose to go retrieve, they are putting themselves out. Okay? Any questions about rosters and maximum minimums, all that stuff, since this is so different?
I'm assuming that the retriever's still going to wear the penny like we did. No?
No, because they're just not in a square. So they're designated as a retriever because they're not on the court in a square.
So if they have extra players, we're just going to have them try to stand this far away and not...
So if they have extra players, let's say they have 8, they'll have their 4 in this, like here are our retrievers right now. This is assuming both these teams showed up with 5. If they have 8, we'll have, 4 outside of the volleyball lines somewhere on their half. And then 4 in occupying restrictive squares in the game.
So those other 4 that are out are allowed to retrieve?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just restricted to the one person.
Nope. Anyone that's not in a square that's checked in can retrieve.
Gotcha.
And
Cool.
then once someone's put out from their box, they can become a retriever. They are a retriever.
Okay, so we don't need the pennies.
Nope.
Okay, well, I set them up
We
in
just
the
don't want to
office,
do
so.
laundry and do all
Cool.
that stuff.
Sounds good.
Team shows up and doesn't fill up like the maximum amount of people in a box. Do they get to choose what boxes they take up, or are we making them take like first and second?
Yeah, so no, they can't move. Yes, they can choose. And inevitably, we're going to end up with 2 people where we have 1 in the back square and 1 up here. And what we're probably going to treat that is we're going to let them try to play for a little bit. If they can't hit each other, then we're going to make them move up. And we're going to give them 10 seconds to decide which front square that they go to. And so there will probably be a little bit of a dance so that they're not lined up. But the squares are going to be staggered like this so that someone can't hide behind the TV. And so there's going to be a clear shot to every square. And then if we do get to a one-on-one and they're not hitting each other from the back, we'll have them move up and then they'll have to figure out where they're going to go.
Yeah, this might come up later, but if a ball, since they can't run on the court, if a ball stops in between squares and they can't reach it or something, and a retriever goes, but it's like blocking the balls for them, like how are we gonna?
Game over, they forfeit. I don't know. That's not something that I've talked about yet. So we'll figure it out tonight when we scrimmage. And because this is completely different than any other type of volleyball, you can tell I've been sitting in my living room not talking to anyone for a year, right? This is different from dodgeball. We're going to have to come up with ways to mitigate all of this stuff that we haven't thought about. So yeah, good question. Hold on to it till it happens. My hope is that there's enough reach to where they can keep a toe in and reach out and get it from somewhere. Who knows? Any other questions before I move on? Sweet. Talking's easy, right? Substitutions can only be made in between games, so there's no way to get back into the game. Once you're out, you're out. Once a team gets all 4 players out, they win. And then the retriever that was retrieving the game before can then occupy a square once they switch sides. Okay? So each game is played with 6 dodgeballs. Each team starts with 3. So somebody on the team is not going to get a ball to start. But there is no run-up. So however they want to figure it out, each side will have 3 dodgeballs and they can talk about who gets it. Okay? A ball is live until it touches. So a ball is live when it's thrown, kicked, or deflected. Okay? So a dodgeball hitting another dodgeball in someone's possession. So if someone throws it at me, I block it, that ball is still live. It hitting my dodgeball does not kill it. I can throw it, I can kick it. However I want to put it into play, I can do that. Okay? Any player that ball touches while it's live is out. Okay, this is probably not going to happen as often, but in the past, like if two players were standing next to each other, the ball hit me and then went and hit one of my teammates and then hit the ground, we were both out. Because we have the squares that are farther apart, probably not going to happen. But until the ball becomes dead, it will put everybody out that it touches. Okay? So a ball becomes dead when it touches a wall, the floor, the ceiling, an official, a substitute or a retriever, a backboard, a curtain. If it touches anything other than a player or a ball, it's going to become dead. Okay? So to get a player out, a player that can, sorry.
Yeah, on that last one, is it okay if they start, like, if they want one person to have 2 balls?
Sure.
Yeah, you don't, it doesn't have to be like every single person has to have a ball on there. You
One
can like
have
have
all three.
all 3, okay.
The team gets 3 and they decide.
Okay,
how they wanna use
and with that, you can like obviously toss the balls in between your teammates, right? So if I have
Yes.
like 5 step, you know.
Yep, you can't put your own team out. So even if I were to toss them, like I had 2 balls, I could toss one to Miguel. If he tries to catch it and drops it, he's not out because I can't put my own team out.
Okay.
So all the normal dodgeball things on your half can still happen.
Okay.
So a player who completely leaves their restricted squares out, a player hit by a ball that's been thrown, kicked, or deflected is out, unless they personally catch it. So I can save myself, but a teammate cannot save me. Okay, so someone throws it at me, I try to catch it, it pops up into the air. If I catch it, then I have saved myself and the thrower's out. If it pops far enough away to my teammate who's in a different square and they catch it, I'm out and so is the thrower. Okay, so there's no way to save a player unless they catch their own ball because I'm catching it before it becomes dead. Okay. We'll talk about it later, but you have status on the court of the last place you touched. Okay, so let's say it's one-on-one. Player throws it at me, I try to catch it, it pops up. I know it's going to leave my square, but I can get a big step in my square and jump to where the ball is, catch it, and then come down. The timing is I caught it, put them out before I got out, and so I ended the game winning because they were out before I was on a one-on-one situation. So you have the status of where you left the court from, and it's not like football where you have to touch inside your square with possession. So that's one way that you can personally catch it, put the other player out, and then be out yourself because you vacated your square, not because you got hit with the ball. Clothing and hair are part of the body. So if someone's wearing a big baggy shirt or they have a lot of hair, if they're trying to dodge and that sticks out and the ball hits it, that's part of them. They're out. The ball can get multiple players out. I think it'll be less likely this year than in other years, but it has happened. And then, like I said, you can't get back into the game, so it's not like I catch it, one of my teammates comes off the bench and occupies another square. It's not gym class, so you can't do that. And then once a player's out, or any retriever, they cannot go past their half. So the volleyball court, the center line extended, they can't go retrieve anywhere in the gym. They have to stay on their half. Every year there are retrievers that run behind officials and go get dodgeballs. Make sure that you know where all of your players are, and especially we'll talk about positioning, but you can kind of look across the court and see that if a retriever goes across, call somebody that's in out because they went across. If they keep doing it, it's going to be a yellow card. Okay. So, player becomes out when they're hit by the ball that's thrown from the opposing team. Feel like pretty standard for dodgeball. But let's see if this link works. No, well, maybe. Okay. So you can't put yourself out, right? Ball's live, it hits a ball, it comes back over, you can't put yourself out. So it has to come from an opposing player. Like if I get ready to throw and someone dodges in front of me and I peg him in the back of the head, they're not out, they're on my team. A deflected ball is live, and that ball hits a player, that player is going to be out. Oh, no. So in this situation, they're both out, right? They hit one player, they didn't block it with the ball, hit another, you put multiple people out. It's probably the only way we're going to see it. Is a catch attempt that puts the ball into somebody else, or the ball comes off of somebody and there's a catch attempt. But we're probably not going to see the deflections where they're standing really close like we have in the past. A ball being held can block. Okay? And so if it never touches the person, they're not out. A lot of times someone will hold a ball out, it'll glance off and then hit them. That will put them out. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just like clarifying. So like, say you come fault me and I block it with my own ball, and my teammate is happens to go towards them and they catch it with that person's
Throws out.
Okay.
Yep, because the ball's still alive and it got caught. Yep. So let's watch these examples. Neat. Come on. So legal, right? It just hit the ball. This is also legal because it just hit the ball. So there's not a possession rule where you have to maintain possession of the ball that you use to block. It still only hit the ball. That's legal, and that player is not out. But then, if it deflects off of the ball and into themselves, they are out. Okay? All right, here we go. We already talked about this last example. Ball deflects off me, someone else catches it. I'm out, so it's a thrower. So I'm not going to have us watch these videos. If we have a tie, it is extremely unlikely we'll have a tie, right? Because timing matters in dodgeball. The only way we have a tie is if opponents are put out at the exact same time, and there are no more players that are in. So it would take basically two players throwing the ball at each other, and the balls hitting each other at the same time. So if Matt and I are playing against each other, I throw the ball, he throws the ball, it's bang bang, whoever got hit first is out, the other one wins the game. Okay, so timing is super important. If we ever have to go to a tiebreaker, we do what we talked about earlier, where it's one-on-one. We tell them it's a front square, pick one. You have 10 seconds. They're going to try to make sure that they're as far away from each other as possible and not stack, probably. And then they're going to get all 3 dodgeballs. The rest of the team is going to be shagging or retrieving, and then we're going to give them a countdown and whistle again. They're going to play until somebody either steps out of the square completely or is hit. Okay. When we get into this situation or a stalemate during the game where either player wants to throw the ball because they want to keep their dodgeball to block with, we're going to give them a little bit to play and kind of that gamesmanship piece, and then we're going to start a countdown to keep the game moving. And so if they have not thrown the ball within 10 seconds, they are out. And so it'll be an audible count that you'll give. If we've got 3 players in on each side, or 3 and 2, or 3 and 1, however it happens, if they hold the ball and don't want to play, we can call this countdown at any point during the game. Okay? We want the games to be moving. We want them to be able to strategize a little bit. So we already talked about the retriever quite a bit. Any questions on the retriever? They have 4 players. How many get to play? 3, 1 retriever. If they have 2 players, how many get to play? 1 and 1 retriever. If they have 8 players, how many get to play? 4 with 4 retrievers. Okay. Again, if someone can throw at the retriever, if we want to tell them not to because they're not doing anything. A retriever, you can't put a retriever out and tell them they they can't retrieve anymore. The only people that you can put out are in the game. Players are out when they completely leave their square, so it is different. We need to get stepping on the line out of our head. They can move completely out. If they sprawl, and there's just the edge of their pinky that's still in, they're in. We're going to call their tape in. So the tape's going to be really similar to this yellow. Actually, it's the exact same tape. So as long as they're touching the tape, they're in. What's that?
If it works.
Yeah, if y'all didn't kick it enough.
It works.
So again, we talked about player location is where they last touched. So I can jump. This used to be something where we would have, if we had one-on-one, we'd have players run to the center, jump, try to get as far into the other half as possible, throw the ball, have it hit the other player before they land to try to end the game. We obviously won't be having that anymore. Someone could probably try to broad jump out of their box. I don't think it's going to work, but they have the status of the last place touch, so they can do whatever they want to do in that. And like I talked about, I'm not going to try to mess with the mouse again, but if they jump out of their square, catch it, and then touch the ground, they put the other player out before they land, and then they put themselves out by landing on their square.
So on like the jump throws, is it contact with the person or contact with the ground that puts them out? Ball.
So if I leave my square in the air, throw it, land, and then the ball touches somebody, they're not out because I was out before the ball hit them.
No. So you jump, throw it, it hits them, you hit the ground, then the ball hits the ground.
So the ball hitting them and hitting the ground doesn't have anything to do with the timing. So that would, in that situation, the player that you hit would be out, and then you would put yourself out by landing on your square. I think everybody's worked in Moby. There's no dunking, there's no snapping the rim, there's no doing any of that. So if we have a player do that, where they snap the rim before or after the game, if it's after the game, you need to write it down on the score sheet because they'll be penalized the next week when they come in and play. But if it's during the match where maybe one team's won 3 games, the other one's won 2, it's a pretty tight game. While they're switching, one of them snaps the rim. It's going to lower their sportsmanship for the night. So if they were at a 3, they're going to go to a 2. If they were at a 2, they're going to go to a 1. Whatever they were at, they're going to go down. And then the next game, they're going to sit a player. So if they have 5, they've got a retriever and 4 squares. They only get to occupy 3 of the squares with 1 retriever. Whoever snapped the rim does not get to participate in that game. They can't even retrieve. Okay, it's not a big enough penalty to still let them retrieve, right? Or if we had 8, that means 3 people could snap a rim, and they would still have 4 retrievers. So if they snap the rim, the player does not get to participate just in that game, right? It's a series of 11 games. We're just not allowing them to play for that one. Jewelry may be worn, but we would want, we need to make sure it doesn't hang far from the body, so no dangling earrings. We don't want someone's ear to get sliced open by the ball hitting the earring, getting caught, and ripping the earring out. If they have those, you need to take them off or tape them. If somehow we missed a necklace that comes out, the necklace is just like a shirt or hair, where they're dodging and their chain is flying out and it gets hit by the ball, they're out. So we want to make sure that we don't have any loose hanging jewelry. Okay? You will have yellow and red cards if you need them. Dodgeball brings out the worst in people. I don't know about this year because of the squares. When I was a student, we had an official get fired based on how they acted after losing to the coordinator. They kind of went nuts. It just brings out the absolute worst in people for whatever reason. People remember getting picked on in middle school or something with dodgeball. I don't know what it is, but if you need to use the cards, do it. We don't want to go looking for stuff, but if someone earns it, right, then we're going to give them a yellow. If someone earns a red, we're going to give them a red. If a team gets 2 red cards or 3 yellows, they accumulate that throughout the game, and somehow it hasn't ended. The teams haven't decided that it's ended, it's going to be a forfeit. Accidental headshots are going to happen. So a player that gets hit in the head is out. It's not like some of our other sports. But if we suspect that someone is only head hunting and only throwing to hit people in the head, then we're going to have a conversation with that person. If it continues, it's going to be a yellow card. Okay, so accidental headshots do happen, and it does put the person out. Like I said earlier, so we always have retrievers just not pay attention to the middle of the field, or sorry, middle of the court. Again, talking's easier, right? If that happens, we're going to warn them. Next time, it's going to be a yellow card for that player. We just need to make sure that they're doing it right. Beginning of the game, especially week 1, you're going to have to explain a lot of stuff because none of our participants are going to know what the heck is going on. I would put the over-under at 3 participants to read our rules and know that there's going to be squares that they can't just go through the entire court. So make sure that's part of your captain's meeting. We want to have that discussion with the captains, socially distanced. Tell them, go tell your players what we talked about with these rules. First to 6 games wins. Remind them of the designated squares, the retriever rule. There's no timeouts or stoppages in a game. So if they have a question, they need to wait till after to ask you. So sometimes because we allow retrievers, you'll be officiating and someone will just be in your ear talking. Just tell them after the game, then you can address it. But we don't want to like have a conversation when we're trying to officiate or even turn around to acknowledge them. Keep your focus on the court and you can still tell them like, I'll talk to you after. You know, just put out your hand, whatever you need to do to try to get them to lay off you for the next several minutes. Ask any questions of the captains if they have any. And then explain the start of the game, no run up. You have 3 balls on each side, and you get to choose who gets them. Okay? Me. So here's our positioning. Right, we talked about 2 officials. The squares, like I said, are going to be staggered. We want to work the 10-foot line and off the court. So our 10-foot line, you'll see out there, like these yellow lines that are taped are our 10-foot lines in volleyball. And then we're going to be open to the court. So if this is my 10-foot line and my team's over here, I'm going to be working off and angled this way. The center line doesn't mean anything, right? Because now no one can step over it. Then I'm just looking at my team, but I want to be wide enough so if someone catches it, I have a general idea of what square it came from so that I can whistle and point that person out. Okay? And if you need to, like late in the game, there's only 2 people in the back squares, you can move that way and then just open yourself up a little bit more so that you can see them better and work your side. Okay? So this official is looking this way, this official is looking that way. Because we can only see half of somebody's body, a lot of times on the far side of somebody, you're going to hear the dodgeball go by them. If you don't hear anything, it didn't hit them. If you hear a noise as it crosses when you're straight line, so you're looking through someone, it makes a noise as it goes by, it probably hit them, right? Because it made a noise. Dodgeballs aren't going to have like the air pressure around them isn't going to make noise because it's going by. So you can use your hearing as well as your sight for this sport, unlike some other sports that we work. If we have a forfeit, we will work with 4. Okay? And so we have our normal positions, and then the other 2 will come back here and be on the back, and this allows us to see the opposite side. So our areas may overlap a little bit to where this official may have an opinion on something that happens on a player in this square on that side of their body, right? But generally, we're just going to split the court in half, and you're going to be responsible for your 2 players. Once players start getting out, you can expand, especially when you like, right? If these 2 players are out, it's not like this person just sits down and waits for the next game. Like, we still want to officiate, and we can help. The other thing that these 2 officials can help with is who threw a ball that got caught. So a lot of times, players know that they're out, and if we just whistle and point, if they knew they threw it, they're out. A lot of times our players point, you're out, I caught it. Right? So a lot of times that happens already. So if we don't know exactly who it came from, we can we'll be able to figure it out. But these 2 are going to have an angle on it because they're going to be on the back line, right? So now my court's here. If I'm here and I'm wide, I can see in my peripherals who threw a ball that somebody on this side caught. Okay? We may use this in playoffs also. So we're still trying to figure that out. We have gathering limits in Moby. And so if we have 2 teams that both have 8 and then we have 4 officials, we are going to surpass our gathering limit for Moby. So we're still trying to figure out if we're going to use it in the playoffs, but for forfeits, we don't want you just to sit and do nothing for that half hour or 45 minutes. So we will do this and then we'll figure it out for playoffs. So normally you would have your whistle in your mouth and you would be officiating that way. But because we don't want you blowing your whistle, we got these sweet Fox 40s that they are 3 tones. We want you to, so there's a toggle. We want the toggle to be all the way down. Okay, all the way down is what sounds most like a whistle. Okay, so that's what it sounds like. So we're just, you want to point it at who it is, who's out, because it's not as loud. It's super directional, right? So like I tried to use this in my first football game. I had one, and I can't use it because nobody on the field can hear when I press it because it just projects the sound straight ahead. Our gym is probably going to be a little bit better. The other sounds that it has, so all the way up is off. There's like alarm, I guess, and in the middle tone. All the way down.
Is that a bird?
The other piece about these is please put them on your wrist, whichever hand you want to use, however you want to do it. Each one of these is about $35 normally. They're now being sold for $90 because they don't exist on websites anymore. No one can buy them because every official that's working right now wants one of these. So if we break them, we can't replace them. Okay? So please put it on your wrist that way. If somehow you drop it, it stays. Don't spin it in between games. Like, don't play with it. It does have a breakaway so that like it can't get stuck on something. So if you're spinning it, you're going to send it down the chain. And you don't work enough hours in a week to pay for one of these at this point. So please just take care of them. We have extras if they do break, but I would prefer that they don't, right? So just take care of them. At the end of the night, you're going to spray a rag and then wipe it down. You're not going to spray this directly. Okay, so you'll wet the blue rag, you'll wipe it down, you put it back in the bin. Managers, the bin will go in the cage. Note there's no top, so they just dry overnight until the next time we play. If for some reason you have a whistle mask or you want to put your whistle under your mask, that's fine. But we have these so that you definitely can whistle with and point people out. So when we do this, we need to do this every time. There are times where someone gets hit so hard that it knocks them over. If we don't whistle and point at them, they're going to assume that we didn't see it and they're going to try to stay in the game. Every single time the ball touches somebody, we're whistling, pointing, and calling them out. And so we're sounding the tone and we're pointing until they leave. It's going to be easier because they're stuck in squares. In the past, it used to be we had to like call out shirt color or something because, like I said earlier, dodgeball brings out the worst in people. They also love to cheat. And so if we don't tell them that they're out, they're not going to leave. Okay? If we have a play where like the ball skips and it like just short hops and it hits the ground first and then into their foot, we're going to just safe that so that everybody knows we saw it and we know it didn't put them out rather than ignore it. If we ignore it, we're telling the other team that we're not paying attention because they think we missed it. So if we have to, we'll just safe on ones that people doesn't hit them, and then pointing with the tone when they're out. Okay, any questions about these new hickeys? We will have extra batteries. It's a pain in the ass to try to get the cover off, so hopefully we don't run out. We only have 4 officials working every night. We have 8 of these, so if there is one that's dead, managers just pull it out of rotation, send it back in, we'll get a new battery, and then we'll send it back out. They're also numbered, so please don't take them home. Like I said, they're really expensive, and they don't exist online right now, so please make sure that all 8 stay there. I'm really glad the TV didn't fall. Probably really expensive to fix also. So, like everything on campus, you have to have a mask on the whole time, right? Whether that's a gaiter or a mask, we talked about it. If someone has one, have we seen any of those stickers that allow people to wear like a face shield or something different or a different face cover?
No.
We might, but if not, they have to have them. They have to wear them the whole time. You'll use the electronic whistle. Fox 40 does make a mask that looks like it has a beak on it. The whistle sits in there. They
No
look really
way.
stupid. I have one because now I end up like not having an electronic whistle. I still need to do it. On the football field. So if you have one of those and you want to do that, you're more than welcome to. But like I said, we'll have these for you each night to check out. Like I said, wear the wrist strap. Don't break it. We can't replace them. And then don't spray it itself. They say they're weatherproof. I don't want to test it again because we can't replace them. So spray the rag, then wipe it down. There are no spectators allowed at our in our indoor intramurals. So different than when we were outside because we can't control the fields. They're open space. We now know that if someone enters the gym, if they're on a roster or not. So because we are in a confined space, we can tell people if they're not on a roster, they can't be there. So we will not open the balcony. Managers, you're not opening that door for spectators to go upstairs. If someone's hurt and they're on the roster, we'll still ask them to leave, right? So if someone comes in and crutches, like, oh, well, I'm on the roster, so I can be here and I'm going to shag. We're not going to play that game. It's like, or if a spectator's like, oh, well, I'll join right now, and they're not dressed to play appropriately, we don't want to put them on the roster because they're not going to be able to play, and then we don't want their team to default because the person who was there that wanted to watch also couldn't play and then defaulted because they didn't get on the roster. So only roster players or players that are trying to play can be in the gym. We want everyone to sanitize or wash their hands prior to entering. If you are checking somebody in, we should still always be asking, did you fill out the symptom tracker or checker today? And then we should be hand sanitizing in between each match. So game's over, our teams should hopefully, like, if we just go clockwise, they won't be walking through the middle of the court. They'll sanitize their hands, let them dry, we'll get back in a square, and we'll play the next game. You all should be washing and sanitizing your hands as regularly as possible as well. Washing your hands is always better than sanitizing. It dries them out less. The hand sanitizer just burns you after a while, and so you can, if you need to, between games, if there's time, run to the bathroom, go wash your hands, and come back. Okay? And then we're going to be using like platoons or sets of dodgeballs. So each court will have a green set and an orange set. That way you know which ones are clean and which ones are dirty. Game one, we play with green or orange, whichever one. But let's say we're going to play with green in the first game. We have 6 green balls in court 1. We play, the game's over, we're going to put the orange ones into play for the next game. The manager is going to be cleaning the green ones during game 2. That will give them the time to clean them, dry them, and then for game 3, the green ones go back in, orange ones come back out. Same thing we did with kickball. We're going to be rotating those balls in. If somehow we have a really quick game and they're not done, then you all as officials can help clean whatever's left before the next game. But I don't think it's going to be so fast the manager can't do it unless there's an injury that they're dealing with or an ejection or something like that. And then you all as officials will clean them, set them to the side to dry, and then work the next game and then do the same thing so that we're not trying to clean them and put them right back in while they still have disinfectant on. Questions? Yes.
This isn't really a question, but a comment. I don't think it would be an issue with the squares, but like if you're calling someone out and don't just point, like don't use their identity, like we can put a inclusive environment. So don't say, hey, the guy over there is out, like describe shirts or like box over there is out, so we're not like making sure we're still being inclusive.
They're using the box where they are, I think that's what, it's like front left, front right.
I don't know if you said this, but if they kick the ball and catch it, is that?
Yeah, so if somehow like the ball hits their foot and pops up and they can catch it and the ball hasn't become dead, yeah, it's the same thing as hitting any other part of their body, but probably unlikely because they're so soft. Most of the time when they hit, they're going to keep going in that direction. It's rare that it's going to completely change direction because it'll just kind of morph over. Like their foam balls, they're not like the kickball, air foam ball, dodgeballs. But yeah, if it hits any part of the body and then they catch it, then the thrower is out and they're not. But again, you can only save yourself. Any other questions? Cool. So we are now going to head over to Moby, but first, because COVID, we need to disinfect the chairs